So many people ask me, what do I practice? If I say yoga, they kind of understand, but they think I'm just practicing some exercises. If I say meditation, they also kind of understand and think that I just sit there, meditate, or I think about something deeply, and that's the meditation. Different people have different concepts of about meditation. About yoga, the general concept is the exercises, and especially in the U.S., it's mostly seen as a practice for women. Anyway, if I say Tantra, that will be a more exact answer, but the problem is that most people do not know what Tantra is. So what is this Tantra? The word comes from Sanskrit. The same way the word yoga comes from Sanskrit, Tantra also comes from Sanskrit. And what's the meaning? If we understand the meaning of the words, it's already halfway there. So tan is the first part, the root verb for to expand, and tra is to liberate. So it's the practice that expands our existence and takes us to liberation. Regarding expansion, it's a characteristic of a human being to want expansion. We don't want limitations. Physical expansion, if we want to explore the land, we want to explore the world, the whole world, we want to explore the whole universe. We want to overcome any physical limitations. We don't like barriers. We just want to expand more and more. And that's in the physical expansion. We want to overcome our physical limitations. So we invented machines. They increase our physical strength, our capacity to do things. They increase our capacity of the sensory organs. We can see further, we can see smaller, we can hear more, we can explore with our senses using all these new devices. So all that is that idea that we want to expand. But as a human being, we are predominantly mental. We are more a mental being than a physical being. Let's say animals, physical will predominate. If an animal is hungry, you offer food, the animal will come to eat. Even if you beat that animal, it will go away a little bit. You offer the food again, it will come again. That instinct predominates. Try to do that with a human being. You offer food, the person will come, you beat the person, then you offer again. The person may be hungry, but will not even think of it anymore. So the mind predominates. That's why we say man, mind, human, a being where mind predominates. Therefore, we also want mental expansion. Okay, I hear somebody saying about the sound is not good. Okay, if it continues not good, tell me again. All right, so we want mental expansion. We want to know more. We want to find answers to questions about everything. We just want uh, answers and more answers. And if there's something we don't know, we want to know. And if we get one answer, then we get another question. That's a bondage. Now we get an answer liberated from that bondage, but temporarily. Now we have another question, another bondage. And in this way, we want to expand our mind. We want to know all, remove all barriers. We don't want boundaries in our mind. We don't want limitations. We want freedom. And as we expand and expand, so when mental expansion comes near to infinite, then we are leaving the realm of purely mental. We are going to, let's say, mental spiritual or psycho spiritual. And as we move towards infinite, then we come into the realm of spirituality. Spirituality is related to something that has no boundaries, that is unlimited, that is infinite. So, mental expansion, a human being will expand its individual consciousness. But the infinite is the cosmic consciousness. So, from the limitations of individual consciousness to the unlimited cosmic consciousness, only in that way will we attain the total mental expansion. At that point, there can be only one infinite. So if the unit consciousness or the individual consciousness expands towards infinite, it will come a point that it will merge with the cosmic consciousness. And that is the liberation. That's when there will be no more boundaries, no limitations. So that is the final point of Tantra, means complete expansion. So the definition of Tantra, that which liberates from the bondage of staticity, limitations. The root verb or the root sound, the root mantra for staticity is Ta. Ta represents staticity. Tantra liberates from that through expansion. It's a practical process, a practical science. When we talk about practical, it means it has a practice. So Tantra has a practice. That practice starts with the body, continues with the body and mind, and beyond mind and consciousness. And the final attainment is the connection with the supreme consciousness. So the supreme attainment. In Tantra, that is practice. Therefore, the practitioner needs to do intensive practice. What kind of practice? Spiritual practice. So, what is a spiritual practice? Is the practice towards the infinite, towards unlimited expansion. As one practices, one gets new instructions from the preceptor. Now, this important point in Tantra is a teacher, a preceptor. As in everything we do in life, we want to play guitar very well. If we get a good instructor, that's most of the success. If we don't have a good instructor, it's very difficult. So in the case of Tantra, as we practice, we get a new lesson, and then we practice more, another one. And as we go along, we are getting new instructions and going deeper and deeper. And what is the goal? The goal is infinite. So we are moving from the limited to the unlimited, from the finite to the infinite, liberation from all limitations. So we want to connect with that supreme consciousness. So that's in Tantra. What kind of practices? The main practice is meditation. Now, what kind of meditation? A meditation on the supreme consciousness, not a meditation on limited objects. If our meditation is on objects which are limited or temporary, we will not attain the goal, because the goal is infinite. A very important part of this process is the purification of the body and the mind. So there are many techniques, many practices related to the body, because the body is very important. It's the vehicle. We'll see it's a process of transformation that starts in the body. And purify the mind. What it means to purify the mind? To remove the barriers, to remove the limitations, narrow ideas, dogmas, and that free the mind. Now, Tantra is a process of transformation. Through practice, we are transforming physical into mental, mental into spiritual. So that's the movement. In physical, we have the five fundamental factors: solid, liquid, luminous, aerial, ethereal. Each one is more subtle than the other. Liquid is more subtle than solid, luminous even more subtle, and air is more subtle, and ether is even more subtle. And these are the five fundamental factors. Now, when it becomes more subtle than ethereal factor, it gets transformed into ectoplasm, which is mental, mental substance, mental stuff. And if the process to make it more subtle continues, then that mental substance will be transformed into spiritual. And we use consciousness. So starts in the physical level. The most subtle, the subtlest factor is the ether. From there becomes ectoplasm, and from there consciousness. So the whole practice is doing this transformation. In the physical level, what is the basic raw material? Food. As we eat, that food starts being digested. It will become a liquid substance called rasa. From there, it will become blood. Now, the essence of blood will be flesh, and the essence of flesh will be transformed into fat. The essence of fat will produce bone, and its essence, bone marrow. And finally, shukra, which is the subtlest physical element. Now, this shukra, it nourishes the brain, nourishes the endocrine glands. The endocrine glands produce hormones. Those hormones influence the mind. Different sentiments are created via the production of those hormones. And to do that, You need enough supply of shukra. And for the mind to meditate, it needs also a good supply of shukra. So the food that we eat is very important. We need to eat that food that produces enough supply of the last element, shukra. And that's mostly the lacto vegetarian diet. One can ask, but do I have to change my diet or not? Well, it depends on the results we want to attain. And if we want to attain better results, so diet is very important. Nothing is a must in Tantra. One practices according to one's desire capacity. But it's a scientific practice, so everything has a reason why it is done in that way. And to get the best results, one can follow a certain method. So, in this process of transformation from physical, ectoplasm is created. So now the mental capacity increases. Our capacity to concentrate, to meditate increases. And the body needs to be prepared. So the physical body is being prepared so that it can have the capacity to meditate deeper, to meditate longer, to maintain mental stability, mental position. You know, in the practice of asanas, the yoga exercises, we want to keep the body in a certain position so that it will have a certain effect in the glands, and that will correspond to a certain effect in the mind. In the practice of meditation, we want to keep the mind in a certain position. And if we can keep the mind in a certain position in meditation, then we will get that concentration that is necessary to penetrate the deeper levels of the mind. Because the external levels of the mind, let's say the conscious level, if the conscious level is very agitated, if the waves are just like that, then we cannot even penetrate deeper. And if the subconscious is also agitated, then our existence is very limited. And meditation starts when we can calm down the conscious and subconscious and penetrate deeper in the third layer of the mind, in the deeper layers of the mind. So, in this process of transformation, the next step after mental is spiritual consciousness. So our thought is becoming so subtle that is going beyond mental, and we are penetrating the level of spiritual. So there is change in the physical structure. There is change in the psychic structure. In this process of transformation, a very important aspect of Tantra, which we will not talk so much about it today, but we'll do in later webinars, is about the Kundalini. The Kundalini, let's say it is dormant divinity or dormant spirituality, sleeping in the human structure. And the concept of chakras. There are 7 main chakras that we mostly know. And Kundalini will be dormant on the lowest chakra, the first chakra. at the base of the spine. In the process of practice, physical and mental practices of Tantra, Kundalini will be raised from the lowest chakra to the highest chakra. So that's also a very important aspect. Now, Tantra has a very broad scope. In fact, every practice for expansion of mind, we can say, is a tantric practice. So it will include so many practices, but of course, some practices are better than others. Few characteristics of Tantra is overcoming obstacles, vigor, fighting spirit. Means if we want expansion, we will have obstacles, so we have to overcome it. The rule is no obstacle is greater than our capacity to overcome them. So whenever facing an obstacle, we should not give up and we should move forward until we overcome it. And for that, we need this vigor and this fighting spirit. There will be internal and external objects or struggles or difficulties that need to be overcome. What helps us? Knowledge, understanding our human structure, understanding the social structure. You know, we might think that, oh, all these practices are for me only, individually. But no, the society also is part of the practice. In today's society, you may find difficulties in doing your practices because nobody is doing it. And in a society where more people will be doing spiritual practices, then it will be easier. So it's fighting also the social forces is part of the tantric practice. We need to understand the physical body, how it works, to understand the mind, how it works, and there will be practices to develop the body and practices to develop the mind. Now, a little bit about what people are telling about Tantra. In the West, there is a lot of talk that Tantra is regarding sex. Now, the misunderstanding here comes because in Tantra, there is a practice, let's say union. Now, but what kind of union? Is the union of the individual mind, individual consciousness with the cosmic consciousness. So that is the real union that Tantra is talking about. And usually the individual mind is represented as feminine and the cosmic consciousness as masculine. So this union. But if people were going to get liberation through sex, then whole humanity would be liberated. Not only humanity, but also the animals and every being. So it's a little bit more subtle than that. Now I checked also like Wikipedia, and they kind of give a good definition. They give the idea that Tantra comes from Tan, which is expansion. They also say a few quite interesting things. One is they say it's a technique-rich style of spiritual practice. And it also says it has not one single doctrine. Rather, Tantra developed different teachings in connection with different religions. In fact, you will find about Buddhist Tantra, Hindu Tantra, Jainist Tantra, So according to the religions that people were following, they were kind of adapting their tantric practices. So in fact, Tantra is a universal practice, like practices like meditation or other practices of Tantra. They are universal. The main thing is one must have a human body. Now, if that individual is in one religion, another religion, it doesn't matter. It will help also the individual to understand his or her religion deeper and better. And to attain liberation, what is needed is the practice. So the tantric practice is what is going to take one to the liberation. Now, as a summary here, and you can also prepare for your questions. Tantra comes from tan, to expand. Tra, to liberate. Means you expand and then liberate. That's the quickest method. Because if we are going to work on every obstacle, work on one obstacle, remove it, go to the next one, remove it, it will take forever. But if you are chained and you expand, the chains break. Now, the moment you expand your mind, all those 1,000 questions have no meaning anymore. So if you are going to go on finding answers to those 1,000 questions, it will take forever. But if you just expand the mind, answers already come automatically. Tantra is a spiritual practice. What is spiritual? The idea of spiritual here is that the goal is infinite. It's not a limited goal, it's infinite. It's not one religion, another religion, or that religion, this religion. The idea is that we are practicing to expand the mind to infinite. Two important concepts: the concept of the unit consciousness, or the individual with a body, mind, and consciousness, like a drop of water, and the concept of the cosmic consciousness, like an ocean, infinite, and that connection, the drop merging in the ocean. It's a very important concept in Tantra. And the practice: meditation, yoga practices, diet, social practices, how to live in the world, how to maintain the relationship with ourselves, niyama, how to maintain a good relationship with others, yama. So all that practice is part of Tantra. And through that, we are overcoming all obstacles, all barriers. And whatever we do in the 24 hours of our day, in the 365 days of the year, and in the 100 years that we live, all that is what matters, is what we do. Because what we do is going to build us, is going to make us in one way or another. So that is one of the most important things. If we want to change us, ourselves, then we have to change what we do in the 24 hours of a day. And now